What's your style? Please welcome Nick Guglielmo.
So what's your style is about really looking at how you relate to people, whether it's your family members, whether it's your boss, whether it's your teammates, so it's actually learning how to actually engage with those people, and it was really eye-opening for me myself. Miss Toastmaster, Toastmasters, and guests. First of all, I'm just going to go over briefly what the 4 communication styles are. The first one is really direct. It's people that are to the point and goal-oriented. The second one is initiating, which is more social and they're relationship-oriented, more like salespeople that are very outgoing. Supportive people are calm and active listeners, good listeners, and always there to like lend a hand when one's needed. Analytical is very fact-based or systematic also. People that look at options and go through those points. So for me, it was an interesting process. I took the assessment in Pathways, and it showed that my numbers were supportive was 7, initiating was 2, direct was 2, and analytical was 1, which was very interesting for me since earlier in my life I liked science and math, and I was very analytically oriented. At most of the jobs that I had, it was very analytical. But over time, as I grew and I had kids, and also I started working with where I became a supervisor and mentoring people, I moved much more towards supportive. So the point is, over time, I believe that your communication style can change. And I think mine went from being analytical to supportive. Now, as I look at my family members, in my family, I have 3 children, and my wife, I'll say she was much more direct previously, and I think as we had children, I think we slid down. She's more supportive now from the perspective of, so I think we actually are better listeners, which I think over time we've gotten much better at. My daughter, she's very direct, to the point. She's a planner, very goal setter, very oriented like that. And she's even on the phone with me. I'll just pause and she'll think the connection went down. So she's very, very focused. My son, he's in sales, so he's more initiating. He has to look at different things in a more systematic manner. He likes to build relationships, so he's very relationship oriented. My older son, he works for Ernst & Young in accounting. He's an audit guy, so he's very fact-based, and he looks at various options, and he likes plans also, so he's very plan-oriented. So I'll just give you one example. Previously, we took care of all the car insurance for all the cars we had, but recently the kids had to get their own car insurance. So I told my daughter, okay, you have to get car insurance. She's like, okay, why don't you just take care of it for me? Right to the point, she said, you handle it. So I did that. My son's like, oh, maybe I work in a brokerage house, so I can look at a couple of quotes and get quotes and talk to people about what the best plan is. But then he became very direct and said, no, you just get it. You get what my sister got, so that's fine. And then my son wanted to look at all these different options. It's just, and he ended up, doing it all on his own because that's the person he is, right? So I guess the moral of the story is that with that, you have to deal with, as I've grown older and my kids have grown up, you have to learn how to deal with them in a different manner, right? So I know how to deal with my daughter, and my son likes to talk, my middle son likes to talk a bit. So I guess, and now looking back on my work, like when I worked, I had a lot of bosses that were very direct. So you had to learn to sort of give them the recommendations, go over the options very quickly, and then just come up with what that recommendation was. So the process of communication styles is very interesting, and I'd like to ask just a show of hands, just based on that, to the point and goal directed, how many people think they're direct? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 people are direct. And how many people think you're initiating? Relationship builders, 1, 2, 3, 4. And how many are supportive? 2, okay. And how many are analytical? 4, 5. You twice? You 2.
2.
You can't be 2. So, in conclusion, so theoretically, when you deal with people, you have to really figure out, and I never did this before until I actually did this exercise, which is very useful. I will, in my own mind, when I meet somebody, try to put them in these categories and figure out how to deal with them from that perspective. If they're direct, you just get right to the point. If I have a boss that's very direct and he doesn't have time for the story, then we'll give him the story. If he wants to talk about it, I've been going on a lot of interviews, so I see how this is. I'm looking for a new position, so I see how this is very interesting. Like when you speak to 3 different people or 4 people in a company, how some people are direct, some people just like to sit back and talk and tell stories and things like that, which is interesting. And then you have the people that drill down and ask the behavioral questions. And then you have folks that are analytical, looking at it all depends what job I would be going for, whether it's a treasury job or some other type of job. But I think at the end of the day, what's important is to be able to know who your audience is, where they fit into the style, and how to direct your conversation based on that style. Thank you very much, Ms. Toastmaster.